conservatives don't have any problem with people masquerading as journalists and batting for one team, okay? That happens every single day, and you are totally fine with it.
But I'm a commentator.
I spare me on that part. I think that's a little bit self-serving.
They're not self-serving. I'm honest about being a biased conservative commentator that works in the media.
Abby Phillip got into it with far-right MAGA pundit, MAGA stooge, MAGA goon, whatever term you want to use, Ben Ferguson, on her CNN show as part of a panel discussion that included Ana Navarro and others about the Trump administration's censoring of the media and attempting to censor the media even more. We're going to take a look at this debate on Abby Phillip's show with CNN, with Ben Ferguson and others. I want to share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Government censorship. It's something that candidate Donald Trump promised that he would end, but 9 months in, it has become a staple of his administration. Tonight, Donald Trump is endorsing Pete Hegseth's plan to ban Pentagon journalists from publishing stories that his team has not pre-approved.
I think he finds the press to be very disruptive in terms of world peace and maybe security for our nation. Press is very dishonest.
Now, a host of networks, including CNN and Hegseth's former employer, Fox, have rebuked his new rule, saying that the policy is without precedent and threatens core journalistic protections. Hegseth has said that outlets who did not agree to the new rules by today at 5 p.m. will be kicked out of the Pentagon tomorrow. And it comes as Donald Trump announces another strike, which he claims killed 6 terrorists off the coast of Venezuela. Joining us at the table is CNN media analyst Sarah Fisher. She's Axios' media correspondent. And Sarah, Pete Hegseth seems pretty determined to ban what is basic journalism, which is that you're trying to find out things that the Pentagon as an institution doesn't want you to know. And that seems to be the point, is to stop journalism from happening at the Pentagon.
But it's going to backfire, Abby. Every time you try to tell journalists not to look somewhere, they're going to double down. And so that's the irony of this whole thing. My prediction is going to be that news outlets will invest even more in covering the Pentagon from the outside if they're not going to get the access on the inside. But you bring up a good point. Every press freedom group says this goes and violates basic constitutional rights, supporting the First Amendment, supporting the freedom of the press. And that's why you're seeing not a single outlet, except for One American News, pledging to sign that policy.
Even Newsmax saying no to this, Fox saying no to this. I mean, honestly, it seems like this seems like a flub, one of many, frankly, for this Pentagon. But they're doubling down. Do you think that they should just back down on this?
Well, you know, you're the press, you're going to fight for more access. It's totally within your right to do that. But you have to be consistent. So this isn't the first administration to try to control the press, and we know where they come. I would argue that this administration is the most accessible. You could probably text the president right now and get an answer on something. Look, they're not telling you not to go and write stories. They're controlling who's coming into there, just like they would any military base. On May 14th, 2013, 50 organizations wrote the Obama administration and said it is not right that you are surveilling the cell phones of Associated Press reporters. So let's just take a step back. You can definitely fight for more access for the press, but you have to be consistent. It shouldn't just be now in the Hegseth administration. And also to think that there's...
Didn't you make that point? I mean, you just made the point that the press actually did push back on it.
Well, you would wonder
so there
why
is consistency there.
Well, for sure. But I don't see, I don't think anyone here pushed back on the Obama administration in 2013. But also the bigger point is...
But you just said so. I mean, the press did strongly push back against the Obama administration at that time. And I'll add one more thing to it. When Obama tried to blackball Fox News, all the other news outlets came out and in defense of their correspondents.
So I would agree that Obama was probably even more in terms of trying to control the press and shut it down. But even there's a bigger problem with media now, and this is why I don't believe there'll be a public backlash to this. I mean, just like there was an anchor on this own channel that had to apologize today because they were saying that the Palestinian hostages totally misrepresented a glorious moment in our history and for the world peace. And some anchor on this channel had to apologize for how they depicted it. So the distrust with the media is
hold on. Well, look,
overall.
let me just draw a clear line here, because people in the media don't say that we're infallible. We're not God. We don't not make mistakes. We do make mistakes and we correct them. That is actually how journalism works. But also how journalism works is that we are actually supposed to try to find out things that people don't want us to find out. And that includes at the Pentagon. You know that. Every administration has dealt with that.
I'm a member of the media. As a talk show host, I want to have access. I think one of the big things, though, that people are underestimating is the American people look at a lot of the media now as not actually members of the media. They look at them as people that put out propaganda for one side. And there are a lot of people that are in the media that are operatives for the Democratic Party.
Well,
I don't think you're going to see
in that, because you just described yourself as a
I'm
member
open
of
and
the
honest
media,
about who I am. I'm a hardcore conservative. I don't masquerade as a non-biased individual who's doing hit pieces all the time on conservatives.
Sure, but I don't think conservatives, I mean, look, conservatives don't have any problem with people masquerading as journalists and batting for one team, okay? That happens every single day, and you are totally fine with it.
But I'm a commentator.
I spare me on that part. I think that's a little bit self-serving.
They're not self-serving. I'm honest about being a biased conservative commentator that works in the media. I'm not lying when I go to the Pentagon acting like I'm a non-biased journalist who's then doing hit pieces only on conservatives.
Ben Ferguson, I always think with this guy, could you imagine being locked in a room with him for an hour or stuck on an elevator or something like that and having to listen to this guy just go on and on? Like, you know, if you were trapped in one of the Saw movies with you're handcuffed to Ben Ferguson and he's just going, yeah, but what about Biden? Yeah, but what about the Democrats? Yeah, but what about Obama? Just over and over again. And you'd have to, you know, saw off your own arm to escape him. I mean, I like how Ben Ferguson says to Abby Phillip, well, you know, some of the people look at the media as not even being real media anymore. They're just operatives for the Democratic Party now. When this administration that Ben Ferguson loves so much had Tim Pool and Benny Johnson, two just YouTubers, in the White House press corps asking questions. I mean, talk about projection with Ben Ferguson. And yes, it is true. You know, every administration, they've tried to have military secrets. Obviously, we have to have certain military secrets, but they always try to keep information from the media. So that's nothing new. And to say Obama did it or Biden did it or Clinton or whoever or George W. Bush, yes, that happened. They all try to control the media to a degree. But we didn't have presidents and their PR people calling the media the enemy of the people, saying that they're liars over and over again. We just had at the top of Abby Phillip's segment here, Donald Trump talking about how the media is dishonest and they're liars. We didn't have these former presidents trying to get them to sign on to some kind of an oath to the Pentagon. So spare me Ben Ferguson with the typical disingenuous shtick that he does every time he's on Abby Phillip. It's always, well, what about the Democrats? What about? It's never, maybe this is a bad idea that, you know, he could admit that maybe the administration that Ben Ferguson worships could be wrong in this instance. What I would like to see the media do is all of them just not go to any of the press conferences for just a week or two. You know, they could get all the information from some other source, but the actual mainstream media, and then you just have Tim Pool and whoever there. Maybe Ben Ferguson could go in and cover the press conferences, but have the media just do a blackout and a boycott of any press conferences. And to me, that would be a fantastic way to handle Donald Trump and his administration, because without the attention that they get from the media and being able to call them names and be indignant toward them and all of that, I really think they would be begging for the media to come back very quickly.
It happens a lot, which is why Americans are not going to be outraged over this.
There are Pentagon reporters who work for right-leaning outlets who say that this is anti-freedom of the press.
I understand the press. There's two different things here. I understand the press all correlating together and saying, hey, this is wrong. I get that. I understand it. What I'm saying is, I think there's a lot of Americans that are going to say this is not that outrageous. What do you actually think? No, what do you actually think about what they're doing here? I think the press is still going to be able to cover the Pentagon.
But what do you think about the decision?
No one's going to not be able to write their
What do you think
articles
about the decision to try to get media outlets to sign a declaration that they won't do journalism in order to get press credentials? Do you think that that's actually a good idea? Honestly,
I wouldn't put this out there, but I understand the reasoning behind it. And it goes back to why I think there's not a lot of outrage right now from the American people, because they do understand that the media, many of them, masquerade as journalists when they're really putting out propaganda of the left. And so they're like, dude, you kind of deserved it.
I think there's not bigger outrage because there's so many things to be outraged about that it's hard to pick one. But also, for me, what's very significant is that this has finally happened. And in the sense that finally the different outlets and media platforms are banding together and pushing back as one. It should have happened, frankly, 9 months ago when Trump kicked the AP out of the Oval Office for not referring to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, Newsmax and Fox did sign a letter supporting the White House Correspondents Association and saying that was wrong. So, it's to me feels.
But it wasn't everybody like it is right now.
It was the vast majority of them, and that moment to me signified that when we saw this deadline coming, I felt more confident because of that news outlets were going to band together.
I always felt that, when that Oval Office thing happened, I always felt, okay, you know what? If they kick the AP out, then everybody should leave in solidarity with and let him cover himself. Let's see how he likes
They all
to
signed a letter,
and
I think to Fox News' credit, Jackie Heinrich, their White House correspondent, she very vividly said, this could be setting a precedent that impacts us in a Democratic administration. And I think that's how a lot of people feel right now. The fear is it's a slippery slope. If you are a right-leaning outlet, if you endorse this policy, if you sign this, then what are you suggesting for the next time that a Democrat
I just also want to remind.
We're trying to make something out of nothing.
Ted Cruz said when the FCC chair.
Correct.
Let me just remind you of what
Yes.
Donald Trump has said or had said about free speech and what he was going to do when he was president. Listen.
And I banned all government censorship and restored free speech in America. I've stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. We brought back free speech to America.
I think this
Government censorship, I suppose, is back.
Trump was very clearly not consistent about that because he doesn't want censorship of his views, but he's willing to censor other views. But I was just reading a quote from Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson years ago said, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I would not hesitate to choose the latter." The idea is that we can't have a government in this country without some sort of accountability. You have to have independent media, independent journalists who can go to the Pentagon and question the Pentagon.
See, I love your idea.
And write stories about the Pentagon, regardless of who the president is. And I think the danger of where Republicans are going right now, Ben, is that they're justifying everything that's happening that they would never allow to happen if Joe Biden were doing this.
Democrats have done that.
It happened on the Fox News channel. It happened in the White House under the last administration.
I'm literally talking about if Joe Biden said you can't be in the Pentagon.
Do you not remember the last two Democrats in the White House?
Do you hear what I'm saying? The exact same circumstances.
Thank you.
The exact same. You can't cover the Pentagon unless you sign a pledge to let us review your content.
Here's what
That's
I
what
think
I'm talking
that
about.
sometimes.
So when Abby Phillip plays the clip of Donald Trump saying we're going to bring back freedom of speech, this is kind of like when Elon Musk said we're going to legalize comedy. Comedy's legal now. We all know what this means. This is not, my enemies, my opponents, they can say whatever they want. No, Donald Trump wants to censor the media. He wants to censor Saturday Night Live for making fun of him. He wants to silence any of his critics and his enemies. No, when they talk about freedom of speech, it's freedom to use slurs, racist slurs, gay slurs, slurs against handicapped people. I'm not going to use any of these slurs in this video, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's what Donald Trump and the right-wingers and MAGA mean when they talk about freedom of speech, because they believe they've been censored, that people get mad if they use certain words today. They believe that's censorship. But Ben Ferguson and Donald Trump, if they censor the media, if they stop the media from saying certain things about Donald Trump, if they only have media within the Oval Office or anywhere else that they're having a press conference, that is the right kind of media in their minds who is going to be subservient to them, that's perfectly fine. The Trump administration, MAGA, Ben Ferguson, they don't have any problem with that kind of censorship. And I like that Ana Navarro made the same point that I made, is that the media all should just walk out together. As soon as in the first administration, with Donald Trump started in with, you're the enemy of the people and that's a terrible question and you're a horrible person and all of that nonsense, which is continued into the second Trump administration. The media should have all just got up and walked out and said, we're not coming back until you can act like an actual president. Be professional. But Donald Trump is incapable of that. And MAGA eats that up. Ben Ferguson says, well, the people are not trusting of the media. Ben Ferguson is, not admitting the fact that this is a president who is not popular. Yes, he won an election. He won 2 elections, sadly. But 60% or so, maybe more, maybe as much as 70% of the country opposes what he's doing. When I'm recording this is the day before the No Kings rally. Another thing that the Trump administration and Mike Johnson and Ben Ferguson and all these MAGA pundits want to shut down because they don't believe in protest either, that form of freedom of speech. I'm recording this the night before the No Kings rally is going to happen. So we'll see what happens there. I'm sure I'll be doing a video about that as well. Let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with what these various members of the panel had to say on Abby Phillip's show? Do you agree with Anna Navarro, or do you agree with Ben Ferguson? Let me know in the comments what you think about this or any of the other videos that I do about Abby Phillip and her CNN show and all of these MAGA pundits. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.